Hello, everyone. This is Arash from Arash's World, and I have this new show, Ramblings and Takeaways. And what will happen here on Ramblings and Takeaways? I will basically ramble on interesting stuff. There are things related to mental health, as well as philosophy, as well as other existential issues that are of importance. And there will be some takeaways. That's the goal. That's what we're aiming for. That's the hope here. And that would be then summed up at the end. But what we'll start off with today, and in today's show, we're going to talk about technology. And I'm going to give some experiences I've had in my life regarding technology. And then we'll try to sum up and see what are some things that we can learn from this. What is some advice that I could potentially give based again on what I know and my own experiences? Now, before we get started here, and before I ramble on, before we do that, I want to quickly also look at the word itself, technology. I mean, it's part of our lives. We are using it more and more. And well, what is it? So, techne is the Greek word for art or skill or craft. And it is a form, it's a skill, right? It's something that will make things hopefully easier for us in our lives. And logos, of course, is a word or expression or study. And so it's closely linked to the scientific method. The idea of technology is to make our lives easier, more comfortable. That is, again, also related to our work. It's also related to saving time. Now, the irony of technology seems to be that the more technology we have, the less time we get, even though we are saving time. So that is one of the interesting things. And so people have different experiences of technology, and it influences them in different ways. Some people love it, some people are neutral, and some people just hate it and try to stay away from it. I'm going to talk about my own experiences, as I said, and I have a love hate relationship of technology itself. I would actually call it a hate love because I started being very suspicious of it in the beginning, but because I'm also in a generation that had to suddenly deal with this new advent, and for me in my time, it took a while for me to have my email. It was actually when I was at college, at university, I had my first email, and I didn't have my own computer, so I would check my email on campus and so on. So that is something that is again was new to me. Um, I VHS, figuring out how it works and trying to program things on it, and then the first CD player. I remember that was a big event. And how do you turn it on, and how do you play music on it? And so it's been a transition throughout. We had the new thing was when we're registering for courses was the phone. So would register over phone to take our courses. We had a specific time. And so again, probably a few of you will remember that and will bring back memories. But we had specific time to register, and it wasn't like just online. You go on it and you register in your course. No, we had to phone in. The problem was most people. I had a rotary phone, and so trying to get through the line was also difficult. And then you have your fingers hurt from dialing so many times to be able to get through to register for your courses. So that was definitely a challenge back then. The other issue, again, related to the internet was it was dial up. So we would use the phone line to get to go online. And so you can imagine how that causes problems, especially if you have brothers and sisters. And I had two younger brothers, so it's then fighting over the phone, who gets access to it, who's going to use the internet, who's going to call, and so that caused issues too. And then, let alone just the time it would take to go on a website for it to show up, and And so today, if it's not immediate, we get frustrated. And I tell my son, who is quite tech savvy, and the younger generations are, that one should be patient. And patience is something that was easier for us to accept because we didn't have things right away. And that is something that was also a bit of a learning lesson for us back then. And then, of course, we had different social media sites. And I'm not going to talk so much about social media today, but we will get to work, of course, and that is something that is. Technology has changed, but again, with one way of interacting was Friendster, which was before Facebook, I believe, and then Napster for music. That kind of changed things, and we people would download it, have it on their computer, and on their devices. Well, we didn't have that many devices back then. And then I had my phone much later, which without internet access first. And then once I did, it was just wonderful. I had things right there. I could check up things. I could check my email, which was anywhere. I didn't have to go to campus to check it. I could check it anywhere. And so slowly, these things happened for me, and I was not. Um, I was not seeing technology in such a negative way anymore. I switched, I changed because I saw the many benefits it had. The fact that I could, again, check my email, I could communicate with people, I could text people as well. That was something new. And so, for me at least, when it happened. So, I think those things really facilitate our lives. So, I am generally in favor of technology. However, there are some limits. So for me, books need to be physical. I do not like reading off screens. To me, that's just not that interaction. So it just seems kind of cold. And whereas a book I hold is an individual, it's pieces of paper. It's unique. It's different from others. I can write on it. There is a tear here and there, and it's more personalized. I think it has its own identity and personality. The book itself, and we attach memories to it. It has sentimental value, and you don't have that. You can't really have that when you have it on a screen, right? So or a PDF file or whatever you're using, or any of the e-reading devices that we have. I'm again not that familiar with all those Kindle and so on, but I can see its benefit. Of course, it's just not something that I would prefer. Something that's also great as well as not great is streaming devices, because with these, we are now able to watch movies wherever, whenever. Whereas I do miss going to the cinema, for example. Again, we're talking even before the pandemic. And that was something that I would always enjoy, because you are there in a dark room. There's a big screen in front of you with strangers, and we're all immersed on this screen and mesmerized by it. And so that is something that I think will be missed, especially we miss out on when we're using streaming devices. But in terms of work, my work, I used to teach for various years. I have been teaching for various years, and uh, classes, I always thought of them as in person. So you see your students, you teach them, and I've taught various subjects, languages, but also a bit of philosophy thrown in here, there, a bit of film, and other subjects as well, psychology. But again, mainly languages, and I thought that it would be impossible to do so in an online format. Back then, before the pandemic, it was frowned upon also by people and by organizations. And so, if you had an online degree back then, it was slightly ridiculed, or not taken as seriously as, of course, when you go to your classes. And the pandemic hit, so that turned everything around. And for me, it was a shock. It kind of went back to those moments, the hate of technology, and it said, no, it can't be. It cannot create the same situations, the same conditions in terms of teaching as well as learning. And so I was very suspicious of technology, of having online classes. These were virtual classes, so we call asynchronous. People go on the same time and you talk to them, and I just didn't think it would be possible, but I was wrong. And so one of the takeaways we will see is related to that, of giving it a chance, of trying it out, and before criticizing it prematurely. I did try it out and I thought it was amazing. And we'll talk about remote work here in a moment, but I thought it was amazing because there are so many things that you can do and I hadn't realized before. So, of course, there are other benefits too, and that's for everyone. But in terms of teaching, I think it was not the same as being in a classroom, but I would still have that rapport with students. I would still be able to communicate with them, to teach them, to do activities online, different kinds of activities, but in some cases, actually also superior activities because you have access to so much more. And it would be also great to have the option of muting people when they're not behaving. You cannot do that in a traditional classroom. You just have to ask the person to leave the classroom, and here it's just a click of the button. And so these are again many things that you could do with it, and that I found out in my field. But something remote teaching and so remote work in general, there are so many benefits to it too. And so just the commute. The commute is something I sometimes enjoy. I'm not going to deny that, but generally, um, I prefer not to commute. Now, for me, it would be public transport, but it could be also people driving. You have to deal with traffic, and suddenly that is taken away, and that is such a relief for many. And I think it saves also so much time. You cut down on stress. You don't have to deal with traffic. You don't have to deal with were issues with the bus system and taking subways and so on. So those things are eliminated, and you just simply have more time. You get up and just walk to your computer, and that's it. And in terms of attendance, there are I found my students who would still be late, even though it was virtually, but it has gotten better. Then you don't see people running down the hallway. So the lack of commute is a very good thing. The other thing is you also feel safer. Some people don't like that, right? But you also feel safer because you're in your own environment. And so you can call it your own office, or again home, or you can have a designated space like I do. But it just feels also more comfortable and less formal. You're not in a different building, and so I think that is something that is has been a benefit too. And so with that, you get a certain sense of control and autonomy that you wouldn't have. And people can't just walk into, you just know this is what you have family members that you have to talk to and make sure they abide by the rules. If you have pets, they might walk into the screen and so on. But that is, again, you do have a lot more control, I find, than if you are within the setting, within a physical setting. Now, what this has done also, it has changed our perception of time, because the idea, time and productivity, for example, the idea is you are in an office. The old idea, you're in an office from 9 to 5, and you basically fulfill your time, you do your time, and then at 5 you're free and you can go. Now, with technology, we've also found out that when you are working virtually, that you gain some control over your time and say, okay, if I get my stuff done here online and I get it done and I do a good job and I was productive, why not finish earlier and instead start earlier and so on? So that gives us flexibility, and that is again hugely important. And we found that again with flexibility, people actually become more productive generally not less so. So that is an interesting point here to make, as well as just the idea that is going around a 5 day work week may, may not be ideal. And I don't think it is. I think we need time to recharge and recharge our batteries and to be fully functioning. And to be more creative and productive and so on. So I applaud the idea of having a 4 day work week. And so, again, have that time to relax so you can go back fully energized, ready to work, motivated, and not experience burnout, which is something that many have experienced and do experience on a continuous basis. So these are some of the benefits of technology and um, virtual work, basically remote work. There are, of course, drawbacks as well. So that interaction, that personal interaction that we would have, we can still have meetings. Actually, in terms of meetings, sometimes it might be a better thing because then also you can easily leave the meeting without it looking awkward, where you have to get up and walk towards the door. You can basically leave at any time. But I think that lack of personal connection, yes, that is an issue. So we have to make sure that if we are doing everything online, that we are also having that human connection, the touch, the handshake, the hug, and so on. I think that is essential as well. Well, whether it's in the workplace or again also in your personal relationships and your friendships. And so there has been by psychologists a bit of criticism of the term social distancing because we do not want to socially distance from others. We want to physically distance from others because we don't want to catch the virus. And so that idea, I think that term should be more physical distance. I agree with that, and not socially. And the good thing again, and that's something I'll talk more about when I'll talk about social media. But the good thing is our connections have grown in many ways because suddenly now we realize we can use technology to communicate and in very intimate ways, personal ways. It's not just a text message; it's actually much more profound than that, so much deeper than that. And we've seen this, and I see this, and I think it's hugely important where you feel again from the safety of your home and you share videos or podcasts, right, or Zoom conversations that you have with others, and I think it, in some ways, it's also more beneficial because you feel more comfortable to share things with the other person, and it's less awkward. It can be still awkward. I mean, technical glitches could happen at any point, and so on. But still, I think there is this way of communicating with others that we need to explore more. We need to try more, and I think technology does that, gives us that opportunity. Of course, other things that I'd never tried before was online shopping, and I know how people are excited about it. I always thought, no, I need to be in the physical store, but again, it is easier. It is fun because you have the process of selecting what you want, what it looks like, and then you wait, and then you receive it. So it's like quite a bit of suspense there and excitement. And I think that's something that, again, has boomed and for good reason. Yeah, of course, we do have to be careful of not overdoing it because, but that's the thing, that's ever since credit cards, where you don't realize how much money you're actually spending because you don't see the physical money, you don't have to cash it out, just some random number and say, yeah, no big deal. And then you realize, yes, it could be. But again, used in responsible ways, like anything in life, in moderation, I think again, a huge benefit. It's something that people should try out. Um, so the personal touch, that's something, the connection is different, but it's still there. We can still connect with others. That is hugely important. And one of the things, again, that's something that I will talk about later on as well, and not today, but would be things like artificial intelligence, right? Does that pose a threat? And it can, but it can also bring benefits. And there are various benefits of artificial intelligence if used again and explored in a way that's ethical. And again, that's something that I will want to ramble on about in one of my next sessions. And then something that I'm personally fascinated with, but also still scared, is the idea of the metaverse and just basically having a life that is not grounded in reality. So that is one of my fears, and that people would try to escape from the reality and create their own version of it, which is fine when you're doing it, when you're reading a book, when you're watching a movie, when you're imagining things, you're playing games, and so on, role playing games. But I think there has to be a grounding too of making sure that you are grounded in reality. And so that could be something that could go wrong potentially. But again, if it does happen, if that becomes the trend, which it will be by the looks of it, very soon in the next few years, I will give it a try, right? But again, I'm a bit wary of it. And social media is something again that has good and bad things, and I'm gonna talk about that more again because I do want to focus and give more details about that in another session in another show. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share about my ramblings about technology. Again, in terms of remote work, I think it has changed the face of work, and it has changed it mostly. I would say predominantly in beneficial ways. It's made our life in many ways easier because even if you're looking for a job, you don't have to physically go to a place, drop off your resume, or go to the post office and send it. It's just a click away, and you can add pictures to it, and you can add so much more to it. And that is again the trend. So we are advancing, and I think it's really important to go with the times. So, and that will get me to the takeaways. So this was a lot of rambling. Let's look at some of the takeaways, and I have three today, and I will briefly also talk about them, but I mentioned them earlier. So takeaway number one for today on technology and remote work, technology in general, don't knock it till you've tried it. I think that's hugely important. A lot of people have negative ideas about things, negative impressions, but we should give it a shot. And if you're not convinced, and if you don't like it, that's fine, but try it out. My experience was I tried it out, and I think it's actually in many ways superior to what I thought was the best thing before, right? So, in terms of, I still, of course, like being in person with other people, but there are a lot of things that I think we can do online, and we should do online, take advantage of it, and probably a hybrid model would be best whenever possible. And not all jobs will be able to function that way. You do need personal contact for various jobs, but if possible, I think again that is something that should be explored, and it should be tried out. And so again, don't knock it till you've tried it, and then make up your mind afterwards after you have the experience. The second one is be friends with the trends, right? So it's a new trend, right? I tried out different ways of communicating with people, different video platforms, and so on. And then you find like, okay, well, this is the trend. This is what I'm going to try out, and I'm going to figure out what works best for me. And if many people say, well, this is the best platform, well, I'll try it and see. Again, going back to the first one, but also be friends with it and not be an enemy of it. Don't prematurely say no. And it's kind of related to the first point, but also go with that flow, right? Because whether we like it or not, this is how things are developing, and we have to adjust. Otherwise, we just go to a cabin without internet connection and so on. And some people do that, right? But then they can't hear me or see me, or again be part of the podcast, which would be a shame, right? So again, go with the flow of how things are going, and try to again adjust to it in different ways, and personalize it, customize it the way it works best for you. And finally, and that's very important too, use it, but don't abuse it. And I think that is especially very important in terms of technology. I think people might see it as an escape. That's my fear of the metaverse, but it's actually already happening. It's not something that will come in the future. A lot of people are spending way too much time, including myself, and to be honest, too much time on online, too much time on social media, and too much time shopping, perhaps online. And so that is something that we have to be careful with. But it is not the only thing. There are still many people who are workaholics, who spend too much time in the office, and so on. So it's just kind of shifting it. But again, be aware of how much time we need to be aware of how much time we're spending on technology. It often feels good, it's easy, but we have to be aware that there is another world out there. So not again be trapped in our own internet bubble or online bubble, and be able to reach out and have again that physical contact. One thing I've seen, and I'm going to have a program on relationships tomorrow, which is again on Saturday at 2 p.m. One thing I've seen in relationships that kind of scares me is when people are on a date and both of them have, for instance, their cell phones and they're not talking to each other. I'm assuming they're texting to each other, but have that face to face contact with others when you can. And when you can't, then you use online technology to do so. This is here my show today on ramblings and takeaways. We talked about technology as well as remote work, and again, benefits and drawbacks. Mostly benefits because I am convinced of technology that it has a lot of good potential, but also be aware of the negative side, the dark side of technology, so that we do have something that works for us. And yes, we do save time. It makes things easier, but also, what do we do with that additional time and not waste it on things that don't really matter? And making sure that we do have the work-life balance, as well as a life that is balanced between our own needs and the needs of others, and our relationships, and so on. So that is what I'd like to end with today. So thank you very much for being part of this program today, and I will see you very soon. I will see you and tell you more about what I think, and hopefully there will be something that some takeaways for you that you can apply to different parts of your lives. Thank you very much for listening.